In the vast kingdom of Persia, ruled by the mighty King Xerxes, there lived a young woman named Esther. No one knew her secret, not even the king. Esther was a Jew. She had been chosen as queen after the former queen had disobeyed the king, and now Esther wore the royal crown, living in the grand palace. Yet, her heart was heavy with the knowledge of who she truly was, and the people she secretly prayed for, her own people, the Jews. Esther's cousin Mordecai had raised her like a father after she was left without parents. Mordecai was a wise man who sat at the palace gates, watching over Esther from afar. He always reminded her to keep her faith and trust in God. But in the palace, Esther remained silent about her identity, knowing the dangers that lurked around the court. Little did Esther know, a dark shadow was creeping into the king's court, and soon her secret would become the key to saving her people. In the royal court, there was a man named Haman, who had risen to become the king's most trusted advisor. Haman was a man full of pride and desired that everyone bow down to him as a sign of respect. But there was one man who would not bend his knee: Mordecai, Esther's cousin. Mordecai refused to bow because he only bowed to God. Haman's anger burned hot. How could this one man, a Jew, defy him? His hatred grew into a wicked plan. Haman didn't just want to punish Mordecai. He wanted to destroy all the Jews in the kingdom. He knew that if he whispered in the king's ear, he could turn the entire empire against them. One day, Haman approached King Xerxes.
"My king,"
he said smoothly,
"there are people in your kingdom who live differently. They don't follow your laws, and they must be dealt with."
The king trusted Haman and, without knowing the full truth, agreed. He gave Haman his royal ring to sign the decree that would seal the fate of the Jews. The order was sent out across the kingdom. On a certain day, all the Jews would be destroyed. When Mordecai learned of Haman's terrible plan, his heart broke. He tore his clothes and wore sackcloth, mourning for his people. He stood outside the palace gates, unable to enter in such a state, but his cries were loud and full of sorrow. All across the kingdom, the Jews were weeping, afraid for their lives. Mordecai sent a message to Queen Esther, urging her to speak to the king.
"You must go to the king,"
he wrote,
"and beg for our people's lives."
Esther's heart sank when she read Mordecai's words. She knew the law. Anyone who approached the king without being called could be killed. The only way to be spared was if the king extended his golden scepter. Esther sent a message back to Mordecai, explaining her fear. But Mordecai's reply was firm.
"Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape. If you remain silent, deliverance for the Jews will come from somewhere else, but you and your family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this."
Esther knew he was right. She took a deep breath, then sent one final message.
"Gather all the Jews in the city and fast for me for 3 days. I and my attendants will do the same. After that, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. If I perish, I perish."
After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther dressed in her royal robes and approached the king's throne room. The law was clear. Anyone who entered without being invited could be put to death. As she walked in, every step felt heavy with fear. But when King Xerxes saw her, his face lit up with love. He extended his golden scepter, signaling that she was welcome to speak.
"What is your request, my queen?"
The king asked.
"Even up to half the kingdom, and it shall be yours."
Esther, with wisdom and grace, did not reveal her request right away. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a private banquet. The king, intrigued, agreed. At the banquet, as they dined on fine food and wine, the king once again asked,
"What is it that you want, Esther?"
But once more, Esther delayed her answer. She invited the king and Haman to another banquet the following day. The next evening, King Xerxes and Haman came to Esther's second banquet. The atmosphere was rich with anticipation. This time, Esther knew the moment had come to reveal the truth. As they dined, the king once again asked,
"What is your request, my queen?"
Taking a deep breath, Esther said,
"If I have found favor with you, my king, and if it pleases you, Spare my life and the lives of my people. For we have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated.
The king, shocked and confused, asked,
Who would dare to do such a thing?
Esther pointed directly at Haman.
This wicked man, Haman, is our enemy.
Haman's face turned pale as the king, filled with rage, stormed out into the palace garden. Desperate, Haman fell to his knees, begging Esther for mercy. But just then, the king returned and saw Haman pleading before the queen. Misunderstanding the scene, the king believed Haman was attacking her.
Will he even assault the queen in my presence?
The king roared. Haman was seized by the guards and taken away. That same day, he was hanged on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. After Haman's downfall, King Xerxes gave his position and wealth to Mordecai, honoring him as a hero. But the decree to destroy the Jews was still in effect. Esther once again approached the king, pleading for her people. The king gave Mordecai the power to write a new law. He allowed the Jews to defend themselves on the day of the attack. When the day finally came, the Jews, with courage and strength, fought back against their enemies. God was with them, and they were saved. Across the kingdom, there was great joy and celebration. From that day forward, the Jewish people celebrated this victory every year in the feast called Purim, remembering the bravery of Queen Esther and the power of God's protection. Moral lessons. 1. Have courage to stand for what is right. Esther risked her life not once, but twice, to save her people. Even when the future seemed uncertain, she trusted in God and acted with courage. 2. Trust God's purpose for your life. Mordecai's words to Esther remind us that we all have a purpose. Sometimes we are placed in difficult situations for a reason, and God is preparing us for something greater. 3. God is always working behind the scenes. Though things seemed dark for Esther and her people, God was working to protect them. In life, even when we can't see it, God is in control and always working for our good. If you were inspired by this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Remember, no matter how impossible a situation may seem, trust in God's plan and stand up for what's right. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching and God bless you.